Pushing as a podcast. This is host Ash. When we talk about 200-mile races, we're not talking about fitness. We're not even talking about talent. We are talking about durability. We're talking about staying when everything inside you wants to leave. This episode is a woman who ran the Triple Crown of 200s, like Tahoe, Bigfoot, and Moab, in 4 months and broke the woman's record. But here's what matters. She didn't start chasing a record. She started doubting herself, injured, questioning if the fire was gone. Instead of quitting, she stripped everything back. No comparison, no noise, just the process, just presence. 3 races, hundreds of miles, storm, mud, sleep deprivation, not pressure, presence. That's what carried her. That's what carried her. This conversation isn't about times, it's about who you become when you refuse to spiral. So let's get right into it, and please let me introduce our guest today. Here is Manu. Hey, Manuela, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And I'm very, very happy to be here and to be able to share my story with you.
Yes, thank you. And I think you have been in this all triple count world where records have been broken left, right, and center. You are one of those people who did it. But before we jump into your story and your journey, how would you introduce yourself outside of running world?
Okay. Yeah, okay. So I'm Brazilian for the people who don't know. I was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I lived my entire life in Rio. And 10 years ago, I moved to a small town called Moab, is where I live nowadays. And it's about an hour away from Barcelona. That was like a big change in my life. I started sports with horseback riding when I was young. I wasn't very into sports, to be honest. When I was in school, I remember when I had to go to physical education class, I always had an excuse not to do it. Because I didn't like it very much, which is very ironic nowadays. But I wasn't very into that, and the only thing that was my only interest was horseback riding, because I started at 11 years old because my mom used to horseback ride. So because of her, I always went with her to the club, and I was always there. And one day I decided I wanted to try, and it was the sport that I practiced for about 15 years. It was the only thing that I wanted to do, and actually I thought I was going to live my entire life doing that sport. So when I was about 25 years old, I stopped. And the reason why I stopped was because it's very expensive, and my parents said we can't afford this anymore. If you want to ride horses, you can do it, but you have to pay for it. So obviously, I couldn't, and I had to stop. And I changed the horse for a bike, which is cheaper. You only have to buy one bike. You don't have to feed the bike. You don't have to take the bike to the vet. And I started experimenting with different sports. And I think that since the beginning, I realized that I like long activities. My first race was an adventure race that it lasted 24 hours, and I loved it. Yeah, so I realized like that in shorter distance I was never really good, but in longer distance that's when I think I could sustain an effort that wasn't a hard effort, but I could sustain it for a long time. Which translated to a long race, it makes it a good effort. And this, I think this goes until nowadays. Like the example is the Triple Crown, right? Because if I had to sign for a short race, I couldn't I wouldn't be able to run fast or place well, but then when it translates to 200 miles or even longer, my sustained effort is quite high for that kind of distance. And I'm glad that I got back to this because I'm having a lot of fun now.
Yes, running is fun and it's different from for you Shivsili because you said you did the horse riding, then you went to biking, and then you started doing trail running. And when did this all started for you, running? especially?
Yeah, running started, I would say, in 2011. So I mentioned I was doing adventure racing, but I did other things like triathlons, and I did Ironmans. And the long distance was always for me like a curiosity. When I started doing triathlons, of course, the first race I signed up for was a short race because I didn't know how to swim very well, and you have to start with something short. But I was always curious about the long. So I started with something short, but I knew that what I wanted to do was an Ironman. And actually, my my performance in the Ironman was a lot better than in the half Ironman, because as I said, I realized that I'm good with endurance sports. And then I was shifting into many sports. I wanted to do everything. So I'm like, I when I try something, the problem when I try something new is that I like it. And then I want to do it. And then I had to juggle between doing mountain bike races and then triathlons, and I did some running, but not that I like running was probably the last thing I did, because I never saw myself as a runner. I didn't think I could run well. And in December of 2011, I signed up for a race in Patagonia. It was my first trail race, and it was 100 miles. And I could only do this. I don't advise anybody to do this, but I just did this because I came from a world in which I was doing races that were 5 days long, which was adventure racing. So I was doing some races that were part of the world tour, and then they lasted like 5 days. So in my head, I thought 100 miles, that's just from one aid station to another. It was simple in my head. And I thought, I don't have to navigate. I don't have to get a kayak. I don't have to bike. It's just running. And it was very simple for me. Even though it was like people were looking at me like, you are nuts, right? You never did this. How come you want to start with that? So when I did that race, I had a coach. I was living in Brazil, and I had a coach who was also a good friend. And I remember he sat down with me and he said, I want to have a conversation with you. And he said, I think you can be a good runner. And you can do you can do well not only in Brazil, but I think you can do well like globally speaking. But you have to focus. Like what you're doing now is not going to take you anywhere, because you're going to be average in everything. You're doing too many things. And if you want to be good at running, you need to focus on running. And I remember that was a surprise for me at that moment, because I never thought I could be good at anything. And it's like, okay, this guy who's a coach, he's a friend, but he's a coach and he's telling me this. So maybe I should give it a try. And together we kind of like we cleaned my calendar, because I had too many things going on. And it was like 24 hours with the bike, and he's like, okay, we can leave some of that, but not all of that, because then it's too much. And actually, when I did this first race, it was in Patagonia. It's called La Misión. 2011, the sport was completely different. It's not what it is right now. It's not like Formula One or anything. People started the 100-mile race thinking like, oh, this is long. Take it easy. We know that nowadays 100 miles is like people go off the gun and they're like sprinting until the end. But at that time, it was like something that was, I feel like it's kind of like what the 200-mile race is nowadays. It's like something that we don't really know about. We're still experimenting with it. There's a lot of strategy that comes. We don't know the sleep thing. We don't know. It's like we're still figuring it out. And at that point, like 100 miles was like that. And I think that nowadays, like going to 200-mile races, it brings me back to when I started the sport, that I fell in love with the sport. And now I feel like I've have fallen in love with the sport again, because many years later, I find that magic in ultra running again.
Like you said, you did so much thing, so much harder thing. Obviously, you did 5 stages, like you said. But when you finished your first 100 miler, how's that feeling? Were you more exhausted compared to the other races? Because it is a totally different thing, like riding thing on a bike, or when you do the Ironman, you have to do three different types of things. But on running, it just you gotta keep running slow, slow, slow. So, how was that experience, if you remember that?
Yeah, yeah, I do remember it well. And of course, I was exhausted because it was completely different. If I had to compare it to an adventure race, a long race, in adventure racing, you change the sport. And when you change the sport, I think there is like a physical reset and there is a mental reset. Because if I'm cycling and I get really tired, when I get off the bike and I sit in the kayak, everything changes. And somehow there's a feeling of this is starting now. And then when I leave the kayak and I have to go running or hiking, it's the same because there's a shift, and the fact that you're changing the sport inside the same race has something to it that makes you like both mentally and physically reset. But when you're talking about ultra running, it's all running, and the only reset you do is like you either hike or you run, which makes it like very demanding on one hand. Like I'm talking about races that lasted 5 days when I was in adventure racing, and then I went to La Mission, and it's like way short. I don't remember how many hours I did in that race, but if I say that I did like, I don't know, 30 hours, I don't know if I guess, it's still short compared to 100 hours that I was doing. But I remember in the end, like having a stretch that was flat, and it was a 10K, and I couldn't run anymore. And I had to hike because I was completely beat up, and my body wasn't ready to do like that much running, like in a stretch, because as I said, I was coming from races where we were walking and hiking, and then there's still the navigation, which makes you stop. So if you're in a team, there are things that happen. So it's not that you're going to do, even if you have from one checkpoint to another, you have 100 miles and it's all on foot. It doesn't mean you're probably not going to go that fast because you need to be aware of the map and you need to stop and you need to navigate. And there are four people on your team. Maybe one person is falling asleep, and you decide, like the captain decides, okay, let's stop and let's take a nap. So it's different, like the strategy is different, everything is different. And my first race was, I remember I finished, I was beat up, but at the same time I was like super happy, and I loved the experience right away. And one of the things I enjoyed the most, and I think this is what I was looking for when I started running, is that I came from a sport that was in a teams. It was a team sport. So there are four people in the team. One has to be a woman, and usually it's three men and one woman because not many women want to do this. So usually the teams are more men, and then they have one woman. And I remember going to a race that was an important race in the calendar, and I got very, very sick, and I couldn't continue. It was in the north of Brazil. It was very, very hot. I was in the middle of nowhere and I couldn't even stand, and I had to drag myself into the next checkpoint. And when I got there, the doctor said, "No more. You need to stop." And I remember carrying the weight of guilt on my back for a long time because I could see in my teammates' faces that they were very disappointed. And it was like they knew it wasn't my fault, but they wanted to continue. And I knew that nobody would continue because of me. And I remember that day I said, I want to do a sport that depends only on me and not in other people, because if I quit, I deal with it and nobody else has to deal with that. So when I did La Mission in December, part of it was that I was looking for a sport that was my own. It was like a similar feeling because you're in the mountains, you're running and you're going up and down the mountains, and but it's like if I have a problem and I stop, nobody is going to be affected by this.
Yeah, I think that is one of the beauty, maybe, or is one of the things is that it relies on nobody, and
Yeah.
we go as far as we can, and it just doesn't matter. If you don't want to run, then okay, fine. Like we can always
Yeah.
try next time. So it's so good. And as you did your first ultra marathon, right? So 100 miles, it's a long distance.
Yeah.
And at what time you realize that okay, I think I'm built for more than 100 miles, and so I want to tackle 200-mile races.
It was not until last year.
Wow.
My thought was I will never go over the 100-mile barrier, because I have done many 100-mile races, and I know it's very long, and that when you get to the finish you're very beat up and your body is like, it's such a huge stress on the body and on the mind, that I honestly, like I always said, I'm never going to do more than 100 miles. I have absolutely no interest in doing that. But then last year, I started the year thinking that my career was over. Like I was feeling very down and I didn't have any motivation. And thinking about going back to the races that I had already done didn't motivate me either, because, like, I started all this because I love traveling, and I think that running is my excuse to travel and see the world. And I was picking the races by the destinations that I wanted to go. So, I had always dreamed about going to Japan. It's like, okay, there's a race in Japan. So what better way to know a country, to know the culture and to know the people than going on foot? And that you're going to do, I'm not going to go on the typical tourist tour. I'm going to do this tour that maybe the locals have never done, because I'm going to, maybe I'm going to go around Mount Fuji in these trails that local peoples have never been to. Same thing with Nepal. I have always dreamed about visiting Nepal, and then there's a race there, and I went there 3 years, and I would go back every year because Nepal is just like this amazing country. But still, last year there was something that was different, and it was like, I don't see a point in doing the same things again. I was lacking motivation. That's the truth. And I thought that after so many years running, it gets to a point where the magic disappears, or that the love is gone, and one day you wake up and this is it. But on the other hand, thinking about this made me feel really sad, because I thought, like, I've been running for so many years, and does it just vanish like that? Like one day it's gone, it disappears. And I realized it wasn't that. It was just that I needed something different. And then I was talking to, like, I shared that with an athlete I coach. He lives in Florida. I say that the athletes I coach become my friends, because they ask me things about me as well, which I find interesting, that that they are worried about it, or that they want to know. And I shared with him this thought, and he said, "Oh, why don't you have a look at Cocodona?" And I had heard something about Cocodona, but I was like, that's crazy. You're talking about 250 miles. That's 400 kilometers. Like, it's no joke. It's doubling the longest distance I did and adding more. And it's like, this is crazy. But I remember that when I stopped talking to him, the first thing I did was to Google
Look at.
Cocodona. So there was something in the back of my head that said, what if? And I saw this documentary, which is on YouTube, and it's called The Long Way Home. And it's with the athlete Eric Sensman, who is an American athlete, professional athlete. And when I saw the documentary, I think more than the race and the beauty of Arizona and the challenge of the distance, I saw myself reflected on him, because he was living a similar situation to mine. Like he was running, not that I run professionally, because I have never seen myself as a professional athlete. This has never been my job. It has always been my hobby. But I was lucky enough to have sponsors that have helped me to do this. And if not, I wouldn't be in the sport for so long. But this has never been my main job. I have always worked. I need to work. But then he was thinking about retiring because he was questioning like if he was competitive or not, and he was kind of injured. I was also the same, like I had pain here and there, and it's like, and he decides to do cocodona. And then I was inspired by him. I was very inspired by him and his story, and also by the race, because I have run in the desert before, but the desert I know is the Sahara Desert when I ran Marathon des Sables. And Arizona desert is completely different. And I had never experienced that kind of desert. And apart from that, Cocodona is point to point race, which means it starts in Black Canyon City and it finishes in Flagstaff.
Stuff.
And it's like the race completely changes when you as you progress in the race, which is amazing. So I thought the scenery was amazing, and it was so funny because I went from a person who wasn't motivated at all and thought like I'm done, to a person who was obsessed about Cocodona. And suddenly it was like, I have to go to Cocodona. The only thing I know now in my life is that I have to do Cocodona. So because I was so stubborn, I was able to, like, I couldn't afford it, and I was trying to find a way to get the registration and partnering with media, and I was researching and talking to people until, I was able to put all the pieces together and say, okay, let's go to Cocodona. And in Cocodona, I fell in love with this distance and I fell in love with the sport again. So everything started again.
Yeah, I mean, you said it's so true though, because it same thing with life too. Because if you have been doing same thing for so long, then you just don't feel like it. It's hard. So I totally get that. And Kokonana is such a beautiful race to pick as well as a first 200 miler. And I talked to 6 people who did Kokonana in the podcast, and their stories are so different, yet everybody is doing the same thing, like based on the sleep pattern, hallucination, and then the recovery after. So it's like a good distance. How did you felt from the person you just mentioned that you're like, I'm never gonna go over 100 miler, to the person who finished 250?
Yeah, yeah. It was crazy because so the day I got a yes from the race director saying, "Okay, you have a registration. See you in May." I had exactly 2 months. So I bought my flight and I had 2 months to prepare. But I then again I have to explain. I truly believed that racing Cocodona, like the fitness to race Cocodona, isn't a fitness that you can prepare in 2 months or in 2 years or in 5 years. Yeah, I think it's everything you lived throughout your entire life that will make you ready to race something like Cocodona. And because of my background and because of everything I did, somehow I had the feeling that I had a lot of the things that were required in able to do something like this. And but still the time was very, very, very short, and I still got injured. So I got injured like 2 weeks after I started training. So 2 months, which were already a month and a half, and I got injured and I had to stop running. And I saw myself in a situation where it was like, okay, either you give up and you send an email and say, like, I'm injured, I can't do this, and I will try to come here next year, or you build a strategy to get healthy to the start line. And the only strategy that would take me healthy to the start line was if I didn't run, which is very ironic, right? It's a running race. But then because I came, like when I was young, I was doing adventure races, and I remember how I trained. I grabbed that strategy and I said, okay, let's think that you're preparing for an adventure race, because you need to be like able to endure for many, many hours. You need to be awake for many, many hours, and your body needs to be in activity for many hours. But let's train this in a different way. So what I basically did is that I cycled a lot. I added many hours of cycling. I just thought of cross training. My job, I'm a yoga teacher and I do strength classes. I have like a studio in my town, and most of my day is like doing classes. So I included that in my training. And I thought, if you're doing this, it's like your body is active, it's like going, and then I hiked a lot because I realized that in the race I was going to hike a lot, and hiking didn't affect me. It was like my injury was a knee injury, but if I hiked I had no pain, my knee didn't swell, and what I ran was very little. It was like, I'm just going to run what my body can handle so that I can give myself the time to recover, and that I get, at least I get to the start line. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to get to the first aid station. But my goal, my main goal, was to get to the start line. I wanted to get to Black Canyon City, to the start line, and be able to start. So it's funny because it was like my perspective changed so much. It wasn't the finish line at all, it was the start line. And when I got there, my goals were as I progressed. So I was like, I need to get to the first aid station. Now I need to get to Crown King. Now I need to get to Mingus Mountain. I need to get to Jerome. And I truly didn't believe that I was going to make it to the finish. And I think this is the reason why I, like, if you saw any of my photos or any of my videos in Cocodona, I'm always smiling, I'm always happy, because I thought, like, if my body allows me to keep going, this is like an amazing victory for me. And I was so happy and I was so grateful throughout the entire race that I wasn't affected by, anything that could, like, not feeling great, or I didn't even notice a down in the race, just because the only thing I was focused on was just like moving forward. And it actually didn't matter to me, like, if I was going to be the last one to finish the race or how long it took me. It was a surprise to me that my race turned out to go so well. But I have to be like 100% honest about that this was never in my dreams. This was never a plan. And when I saw myself in a racing situation, is like, I can't believe this is real. So how can I not, how can I not fall in love with the sport, or how can I not fall in love with the distance when I just have this amazing time, and that I can prove to myself that sometimes, you're not going to take the conventional way and it's fine. And it helped me believe in my process. It's true that I had to eliminate all the distractions from my life, and one of them was social media, Strava, comparisons. It was like, comparisons now, they're just gonna kill me, because if I see what other people are doing, I'm just gonna doubt that what I'm doing is right, because it's like, it can't be, people are running what you run in a week, they're running in one day. And it's like, what you're doing is not right. It would only make me think that. So I just removed all of that from my life, and I focused on my process. And I think this was key, because sometimes, like, you can't compare yourself to another person when you're in a different situation. And when your life is different, or you're dealing with an injury, you're dealing with something, only you can know yourself that well. And you can come up with a plan for you, and you need to trust it and believe it. So the distractions won't help you at all, and I think this was very important for me.
Yes, definitely. I think I remember this quote from Lucy Bartholomew when I did the podcast with her. He says, "Comparison is a thief of joy." I think, and
Yeah.
that is what we all do. Like, especially, I think the social media has made it so toxic in a way because everybody and everything is glorified. Nobody is putting the failures. Like, if we struggle, there is nobody's putting that. Everybody's putting about winning, 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 crossing this, crossing that. So I think it's, like you said, it is a distraction, and if you struggle with the comparison, then it's so hard to go through. And going back to you from Cocodona, when did this dream of Triple Crown came? Was it like something you have been eyeing on after Cocodona, or you were something like, uh-huh, look at that record, I think I can beat it? How did this dream or this thing happen for you?
Yeah, as I mentioned, like I have always been like this, and I always want to see what a step further would be, So when I finished Cocodona, there was a part of me that thought, that questioned if what I did was because I was aware of what I was doing, or was I lucky? I didn't know if what I did happened to go out well because of luck, or because I had the right strategy. Because I only did one race. And sometimes you can be lucky. It's true. So I thought, I started seeing like this kind of race. And then I saw there was something called the Triple Crown. And same thing like Ocodona, I started researching about it. And I started to find a way to go. It was like financially impossible for me, but I thought this would be amazing. Like, how can I do that? So I saw that one of the sponsors for the race was Tailwind, and Tailwind is my sponsor. So the first thing I did was reach out to them and see if they were interested in having one of their athletes doing the Triple Crown. And to my luck, they were. And um and it was through Tailwind that I got the registration. But then still, I live in Spain, and I need to travel. This means that I need to travel 3 times to the United States. I can't go there and stay there because I need to work. I have my job and I have to be physically here. Like, if I could work remotely, maybe I could consider just staying there, but I can't. I had to go and come back, which made it like very expensive. I needed a sponsor, and I had this project, and I was looking for sponsors. And recording a podcast in Spain, I mentioned that I had a project, but that I couldn't afford it, and that this was my dream. And then a person who was linked to a brand heard it. And the good thing was that this brand was Mount to Coast. I didn't know at that moment, but he reached out to me and he said, there is a brand who might be interested in this. And I didn't know what the brand was, but then when he mentioned to me it was Mount to Coast, the nicest thing about this, and I always say this, is because you might be with a brand, and this brand might say to you, like, you need to run this race. We want you to be in this race. Maybe this is something you're not interested, but the brand says you have to be there, and you're going to be there, motivated or not. It's your obligation, right? Here, it was completely different. It was like my dream is their dream, and we had the same goal. So this bonded in a way that it was like perfect. It's like we are designing products for this distance. We want the shoes to last this long. And what better scenery to test out the shoe than in a triple ground, or than in these conditions. You're gonna run very long. So it was when everything started, and then it was like, Cool. Now I have the Triple Crown. But still, I had the doubt of, can I do, I know I can do one, but can I do three? And that's like in 4 months. So you're running the first race and the last race, and there is only 4 months between them. And it's crazy, right? Because we think about 200, like 200 or more than 200 miles is like how much time you need to recover from that. So it was like something that scared me so much. But at the same time, it was something that motivated me so much because I'm curious about, what I can do and what the limits are and how to do this is my first curiosity, because I'm also a coach. And I would love to understand how you can do this, like find a formula so that you can help other people to do this too. And then preparing for the Triple Crown, my strategy was like the same as in Cocodona. I was still coming out of this injury. So I still dealt with this injury for longer. And I started training 2 months before Tahoe. So, yeah, what I did before Tahoe is I signed up for a backyard ultra because in my head, this was the only race that made sense. If you're preparing for 200 miles, like if I sign up for 50K, like people are going to go super fast and I'm going to try to go fast and I can't go fast. And it was like, I want to run 100K, but I I'm gonna take it easy. And it's like a backyard, you need to stop every loop. So the stop and go is part of what you're doing in 200 mile races. Because at the aid stations, like you stop, you sleep, you eat, and then you go. And then it's all like that. And then the pace is the same. You can't go too fast. You need to find a pace that is a pace that you can maintain for a long time. So I did before Tahoe was the longest training run I did was a backyard ultra in which I did 100K, and I limited myself to 100. I said no more, like between 50 and 100, and this is it. And then when I finished Tahoe, from Tahoe to Bigfoot, my longest run was a 47K, which was like part of a route here near my area that I wanted to do. And from Bigfoot to Moab, my longest run was a 20K. So I went down the ladder,
Yeah.
because as I progressed in the Triple Crown, I saw like that I needed to go down, because if I kept pushing this up, when I get to Moab, I'm not ready to run because I'm physically and mentally burned. And in my head, especially my head, needed to be fresh. I feel that if your body is not fresh, but your head is fresh, good. But if your head is not fresh and the body is fresh, bad.
Yeah.
Because the head needs to be, the main thing is the captain. And the captain needs to be good. So
Yes.
so I think I don't know. That was my way of thinking. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but for me it was right. It was what made sense. And record is not something I ever thought about. And I never thought about podium. And I never thought about winning. The record and everything just came to my head when I was getting to Moab, because that's when I saw that I could do it, that it was in my reach. But to be honest, like I never went into the Triple Crown I knowing what the record was or thinking that I was capable of doing that. I was just, this ordinary runner who is here to live a lifetime experience and to try to finish. This was my goal. And I doubted myself. I didn't think I was going to be able to finish. That was probably the reason why I was there. It's like the doubt, the fear.
You just said like you had no clue about it before the Moab, and now you are in this situation, right? So the thing you have never thought of before doing this triple crown, like record or anything, and once you finish the two races, you're like, oh God, I can get it now. Did that, or what, did it create any pressure on you or something like that, where you have to, now you have to go and get it done, or you were just like, I don't care, I'm just gonna go and have fun?
It not I don't feel it created any pressure because when I started Moab, I knew that I had plenty of time to do the race. And based on my times from Tahoe and Bigfoot, I knew that if everything went well, that I could make it. So that was like a big thing on my side that made me feel calm and relaxed. And it's like, you can go for that. You don't have to go crazy. Just do your thing, just be you and do what you have been doing up to now. But on the other hand, I had to finish the race. And that's not something that you can count on. And especially when you're talking about races that are that long. And I think this is what the Triple Crown has in its like the most difficult thing about the Triple Crown is that you need
Yes.
consistency. And we're talking about consistency in races that last many days. And it's very difficult to be consistent in that kind of race because you can have a really good race and then you can fail. And to be honest, I said the statistics are not on my side because I did well in Cocodona, I did well in Tahoe, and I did well in Bigfoot. So going to Moab, I said, this is where I'm going to screw it up, basically, because the odds are high. I mean, I'm being realistic, you know? So I knew that finishing the race wasn't an easy task. I knew that once I finished, that probably my time would be a time that would still be able to, if things were more or less going the way they went, I could reach and get the record. But the thing is that I had to finish. And that was the part that I didn't know if I was going to be able to do. And my race didn't start well. It started really poor. And in the beginning I felt really bad and I had to sit and wait and see people go by and just recover because I wasn't feeling well. But the good thing is that I had a lot of time and I was calm, feeling when I didn't feel great. I knew that this is normal and I didn't panic or anything. I was calm and I was like, just recover, do what you need to do, change your clothes, reset, start again. And I was able to do that. So I think that experience from all my background, all my past, and age in this case helps you because it's your friend, because you have lived longer than the younger people and you have experienced different
Yeah.
things, and this is helpful when it comes to a race that is has so much strategy and problem solving.
Out of the three races, which one broke you the most, or out of four, let's say Cocodona, Bigfoot, Tahoe, and Moab, which one broke you the most?
Like I have to say Moab, but I think Moab is because of the cumulative thing that comes with it, right? We're talking about the last race, and I started racing in June, and like when I finished Tahoe, I was pretty beat up. I remember like crossing the finish line and someone mentioned like, okay, one is done, now you have to do Bigfoot, and I was like, oh, it was like almost that I had a hangover and you're offering me a beer. It's like, come on, I can't do this. And I was pretty beat up, but you tend to forget, right? And Bigfoot was the one that I felt the best in finishing, because I was quite fresh by the end, which was a surprise for me because I didn't count it was going to go that fast. I expected to do many more hours, and actually I finished Sunday night when I expected to finish Monday at noon, and I didn't even have a hotel for Sunday. I didn't book a hotel because I never thought that I was finishing the race on Sunday. Like to me it was like Monday for sure. So it's like no hotel, and I finish and I'm like there in the finish line. It's like, okay, Now I need to sleep here. But when I finished Bigfoot, I think that because it went so much faster than I thought, I felt fresh. Like, and in Bigfoot, if you had told me like now you have Moab to go, I would go like, yeah, yeah, let's do this. Because I was, mentally I was in a better space, physically I was in a better space. But then, I went getting to Moab, starting Moab, I was feeling good. I was feeling great. It's like I'm not going through an injury. My head is, where it has to be. My body feels good. I feel like I rested. I didn't train much. I didn't train at all. I'm like just recovering from, and let's see what I can do. Right. But then it's longer. We're talking about, 10 hours more
Yeah.
than Tahoe, which was longer than Bigfoot. So that also affects you. Then we had miserable weather for the
Yeah.
race. That affects you a lot, both physically and mentally. It makes everything slower. So we were stretches of just going through mud and mud and mud, and you can't progress. You're just stuck and you're feeling cold. It I think that impacts you in a level that it all adds, right? And then when you get to the end, it's like I'm pretty beat up, and I feel that after the race, I because it was the last one, I relaxed and I said I don't want to train, or I'm not going to do, apart from my job, because I can't rest at all because I'm doing classes every day. I'm not training or anything. So today I went for a jog. So it's like 4 weeks after. And I feel that when you're in the process, your body kind of like it knows that you still have to go. So it's still, hanging onto something that is like, okay, I can't relax. But when you finish the last one, it's when your body and mind said, this is over. Now just take a break. And that's when it all comes. And I felt like this general fatigue, which I was like, I said, mentally, I'm not 100% because I feel I'm sort of like in this brain fog, and I have a hard time concentrating. And it took me a while. Now I feel like people ask me like, how are you? Are you feeling now? Are you recovered? And now I say, yes, I am. Because now I feel like, okay, mentally I'm good. Physically, it's not that if I had to push now, I wouldn't, but I feel like, okay, I feel like, doing things again. And so this means that I'm kind of ready to, just start easy again, but start again. And it definitely was probably the hardest one, but I think it's because of that. I think it's because you add everything. And in the end, like, it's impossible not to notice it.
As you are here, right? 1 month after everything is done, having
Yeah.
named your record and everything. And when you started, you had this dream, right? You talk to people about this project of yours and your dream of running this Triple Crown, and you fought through every mile, 3 races, brutal conditions, and everything. And once it was done, how did you felt? Were you relieved? Were you sad? Because you obviously won, you have a record to your name, but then again, you had this dream and that is over now. So, and you don't have anything next planned because you just want to take a rest. So, how did it felt when you finished the crossing line at Moab?
Yeah, I definitely felt sad. Happy, of course. I was very, very happy. The feeling of fulfillment, of achievement, everything of above anything, because I'm not, I think the record is something that is a consequence, and it's something that is there and that somebody else will come and take it. It's like it's mine now until someone comes and takes it. But there are things that are mine and they will be mine forever. And these are the things that I learned and the person I became, and all the changes and everything that it brought to my life. This is mine and nobody can take it away from me. So I think this is the most valuable part. And as you said, like there is sadness to it, because this dream kept me like alive, and it kept me focused throughout many, many, many months, which is great, right? Because when you have something ahead of you, you work towards it. And I feel that, especially like people who do sports, it's important to be focused, or else it's very easy to say, just like, oh, it's too cold today, I'm not going to do anything, or it's windy, or whatever. And actually, like, I feel this right now, like a little bit of that. And I told myself, okay, it's time to get going again. And I said 4 weeks, just, and I said, today I'm gonna run. And it felt really good for me, because I needed that as well. It's like, there are things that I'm thinking about next year. There's a possibility of racing in December this year, and this is also something that I feel that lights everything up again, because we are made this way. And I think that having goals are important, and especially me, I feel that I'm a person who is productive when I have a deadline, or when I have things, right? And if not, it's very easy to just say, oh, this was a massive effort, and your body needs to stop, and you need to stop. And you can believe that stop means 6 months if you want, because you already did something big. So yeah, I'm kind of like in this place right now where I'm looking for other things. Of course, they have to be things that are in my head, kind of like challenge me in the same way, in terms of difficulty, in terms of self doubt, in terms of danger, overcoming and trying to do things that I have never done before. So again, it's like the destination is important for me. Um, and I'm in the process of finding out what this is going to be, but it feels good to start again. And today was like, for me, I went for an easy run, short run, but it felt really good, because it's like, I love this, and I'm glad that I'm coming back, and yeah, moving again, and this makes me happy, and I feel that, I need that in my day.
Definitely, I think after success, and when you take a reset, then it's kind of a, the fire is, I think, reburning for you too, because that reset, that the December race like lit fire on you, so that means it's still there. And when you look at back your journey, right? So last year and a half, it's been pretty much successful, because you did Cocodona, you did obviously Triple Crown, and from the person you said, I'm never gonna do anything over 100 miles, you have here finished four of them, one of the toughest ultra marathons in the world. You did four of them. And looking back at now, what did all of these races taught about yourself?
Yeah, I say that it kind of like, it one of the things that I worked the most throughout this process, and that I think helped me be successful in this kind of race, it's something that I practice in my daily life, and it's trying to stay present. And I have said this in every interview I gave, or any podcast that I recorded, because it's part of my job as a yoga teacher to try to pass this on to my students, but also practice this in my life, because it makes no sense if I'm telling you to practice this and I'm not doing it. And I think my job as a teacher, it requires this skill, because if I'm not present when I'm doing a class, I will get lost. So it requires a lot of concentration from my side, that I'm like 100% focused and present, so that I'm speaking while I'm doing the class, while I'm watching you, and while I'm correcting you. It's like multitasking, because and I need to be like 100% there. If my thought goes to the future, and if I think about what I'm making for dinner, I don't know what the next pose is. I get lost and I don't know what to say. So this is something that I practice in my daily life, and that I think I was able to do in the races, because if I think about the future when I'm racing, it can be quite destructive, because many of the times it's like you still have a long way to go, and even when you're close you still have a long way to go. If I think about the last aid station, it's like I still had like almost a 30-kilometer section to get to the end, and it was rainy, it was rocky, I was beat up. It's going to take forever. But still, if I'm thinking about, oh my god, this is like and I was like, no, just focus on this rock and that rock and this and that, and if you're climbing, if you're descending, and just take it all in, enjoy the view. This is like the last part of this huge project that made you so happy throughout so many months. Don't think about being over. Think about now and enjoy now, because this is what it is, right? And this is this is what is real. It's like this is happening now. And I think that this was very like a very very good practice for me, because that last part, I don't know how long it took for me, but I felt like it went by fast, because I was enjoying it, even though I was in pain. And, you know, this is kind of like, we go there, we search for this kind of suffering. It's true. And we search, like, at least me, like, I want solitude. I want the challenge, and I want everything that comes with the challenge. If that is pain, it's pain. If that is feeling cold, it's feeling cold, uncomfortable. This is what we're searching for when we sign up to do something like that, that is so big and so massive. It's impossible to do this and not suffer. There is suffering to it, but it's the kind of suffering that we enjoy, right? And if I feel like I was able to embrace that, and even the suffering, I embraced the suffering, and I embraced the storm, and I embraced the wind, I embraced everything, because this is what comes with it. I can't control the weather. Would you have liked to have had the nice weather? Yes, but on the other hand, it's like it also makes the race memorable. And one of the things I said when I finished, I said, Moab is always sunny and it's always hot. So maybe we were the lucky ones who saw Moab flooding, because
And
this is
snow
like
too.
a typical. So maybe we were the lucky ones. It's all a matter of perspective. Yeah. And try to, be positive about whatever comes on your way, believing that everything that comes to you is with what it's doing. It's like lifting you up somehow. And if it's difficulty, it's also to lift you up. It's also to make you grow. It's to make you learn, and not think that this is all, poor me. Oh, everybody, and look what happens to me, and feeling sorry for yourself. And I think this is like a very wrong way of thinking, because it only brings you down. Is like that negative spiral that you don't want, especially in a race that is that long.
When you look back at your journey or these races, right? So if there is a moment that you can look back and that gives you chills, is there any moment that gives you, when you look at it, is like, oh god, that was so good?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, in the good and in the bad, because I think like the moments that I remember, like the hard moments in the race, they are the ones that stick to my mind the most, because the good moments is like feels like everything is easy when it's not. But just because you're having a good time, your body feels good and everything is flowing, you tend not to see it the same way when you see like a hard moment. And if I think, like, for example, one of the moments I shared with a lot of people is I was in this part that I was in the night and I was alone. I chose not to have a pacer with me, and it was very muddy, and it was muddy for a long time. And we were kind of like stuck in the mud, and the mud got stuck to our shoes in a way that they became really heavy, and there wasn't like a grip, so you were falling everywhere, you were moving like. And I remember in my head, I was in this spiral that was very negative at that point, because I was like, I can't believe this. I was like very angry. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't, da, 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 and I'm going on and on and on until a moment that I said, stop, shut up. I told myself, shut up, because this is not. It's like what's happening to you is happening to everybody, and this is what it is. This is not gonna change. So stop complaining. I was complaining in my head, and at that moment it was like, stop. But there was like a thunderstorm coming in my way. And when I saw it the first time, I didn't know what it was, because it was all dark. So I didn't have an idea of the landscape around me. But suddenly the sky lit up in front of me, and it looked like a giant television. I say a giant television because the lines were flat, and it lit up like something gray, like a light, and so big, a huge rectangle in the sky. And I was like, what is that? And it lit up again. And then I could see that the bottom line was the horizon, and that the top line was the cloud. And this storm was coming my way. And, I could feel like the wind picking up. And I was still stuck in the middle of the mud. And I was alone. And I felt so vulnerable, because it's the kind of situation that makes you feel like, okay, what can I do? And that's the first thing I asked myself, is like, what can I do in this situation? So let's say the storm gets here. What do you do? And my answer was, put on a jacket. That's the only thing I could do.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's when you feel like so small, and you see that like you are nothing in the end, because we are like, we think we matter so much, but we are these little things that
Yeah.
don't have that much importance. And somehow I felt strong when that happened, because there was something inside of me like that told me, don't worry, you're going to be fine. And I believed that, which is important. And I even wrote about that, because I said, I find it very important for you to have something that you can hold on to when things get difficult. And not only in a race, I mean in life, right? When you have a difficult situation, you need to believe that you're going to get out of it, or there's something that needs to give you hope. Because if you don't have hope, then what? Right? In that situation, if I didn't have that thing inside of me that told me you're going to be fine, I could have panicked, or I could have, I don't know, it wouldn't have taken me anywhere better, because I was stuck. So having that, peace of mind to just say, okay, it's fine. It's going to be fine. Everything is going to be okay. It's so important. And it's things that you learn when you're facing this kind of situation. That's why I say, like, the bad isn't only bad. We tend to find bad is bad, and it's like, oh, this happens. Like, but what if this thing, and then we go back to the point where I said, I believe there's this energy that is lifting us all, and that things that are bad in the first sight that you see is like, oh, this is bad, it can be really good. Sometimes you need it. And then going back to my injury last year, it taught me a lot. And I think my injury was important. But last year, I could only see it as a bad thing. I would never say that it was good. But my injury taught me a lot. And especially going to the Triple Crown, it taught me how to train It taught me how to preserve my body. And it has taught me so much about myself. So it was important for me, right? I think that if I hadn't got that injury, maybe none of this would have happened now, because maybe I would have overtrained, or I would have done it in a different way that maybe it wouldn't have worked. So definitely, like, there is a person before and a person after, and the person after is the person that earned all of those things that come with the Triple Crown, but that are not records. The records is something that is there to be taken, and it's gonna be taken. I know, and it's fine. It's totally fine, because I have what I need from that.
What you said is so true, that we are sometimes so, I think, focused on the bad, then we don't see that it is seeding yourself for the future, or getting you the strength to become who you are next year. Maybe after 6 months down the line, that it is just giving you the strength. And going back to you, you said earlier on that you did this horseback riding at earlier on, and that is how you train, and you did it for 15 years as a thing as well. So if you go back, and do you think that Manuela would see herself doing these big 200 mile races at this moment?
No, no, not at all. I never saw myself like as an athlete, or I never thought that my life would go this way. Not even that I would work with that, because now I'm a coach. I graduated as a designer, and I love design. This is like, I worked in a design studio in Brazil when I was living there for many years, and this was also my passion. And I always thought, running is my hobby. I will do this a little bit, and but I'm a designer, and this is what I'm going to be in life. And it's funny how, life takes you in different directions. And my dad always says that is like, let the energy of the universe take you, and feel like you're surfing. When you're trying something like really hard, and the doors aren't opening for you, it's because it's not for you. And trust that if you knock on that many doors and none of them open, forget it. Don't insist. There's something telling you not to go there. But on the other hand, if you're going this way and all doors are opening, it's because there is something there for you. And I feel that, this happened in the 200 miler for me, because when I tried to go to Cocodona, as I said, like, initially, I couldn't go because financially I can't afford it. And it's like, oh, this door open and this other door open. So it's like there is a sign that you should go there. And then with the Triple Crown again, it's like, right? I had the help of my sponsors, who were like, yeah, you can do this, and we can do this, we can help you with this and that. So suddenly something that is impossible is possible and in my reach. Now I have to do my part. I need to.
We're almost close to the podcast, but there are a few things I would like to your knowledge or input on. So let's say if somebody is new to ultra running, or if they are doing their first 100 miler, since you are very efficient at 100 miler races, you have done so many of them, what would be that one piece of advice that you would give to that person that is running? For instance, me, okay, I'm running for my first 100 miler next year, or yeah. So what would be your first piece of advice that you would give or tell me?
Yeah, one of the things I said already, and I think it's a good advice for you, is like, trust the process, knowing who you are and where you're at. Because I think that when it comes to 100 miles, people kind of like go crazy with the training, because it's like a long way to go. And then you feel like, I need to run a lot and I need to prepare a lot. And sometimes it's like, this can be counterproductive depending on where you're at. So let's say you have a very busy life, your family, your job, you're juggling with things and meetings, and you still have to find time to train, and you believe that more is better, because I'm training for 100 miles and I need to train more. And it's not necessarily like that. And I gave my example with the 200 miles, right? I felt that less was more for me at that point. It's true that I come from many races and I have my background, and I can trust everything I did so far until I got here, and I trust that that's part of my fitness that I bring into that. But sometimes I think, we are looking at what other people are doing instead of looking at ourselves and trying to compare someone else what they're doing in their training when our lives is different. It's like, right? I don't know. I'm coaching a person who lives in a place that is flat and that they don't have uphills to train, and that they only have access to the mountains at the weekend. So their training is limited. But then you go to the race, it's a mountain race, and you're comparing your time to the guy who won, who is a professional. It's like, wait, first of all, compare your life. It's like you're working all day and you were standing last week in a, I don't know, in an event that you had to stay 5 days, the whole day you were standing, and you just came to, and that was your week race, race week, sorry. uh it's like, and it's impossible. We tend to compare, and as you say, like, comparison is the thief of joy. It's right. So I what I advise is like to trust your own process, listen to your body, do what is right for you. Also preserve yourself in your training. Try to preserve yourself for the race as well. Don't beat yourself up, because if you beat yourself up in the training, you get to the start line and 100 miles is a long way to go. So your head needs to be fresh, your body also needs to be fresh, and find the way that will bring you to the start line feeling like, having that feeling of like, okay, now I want to run because mentally I feel like running, and I'm also physically like ready to go.
That makes sense. Like getting yourself, because I remember all the races that I did. I think I went to the race with almost every time overtraining and carrying injury from overtraining, because I was pushing so hard to just to be ready or be fit. But at this year's ultra, I almost had like a month of very less mileage, and when I went to it, then I went with so much fresh without any injury, and it was a different experience. So yes, I kind of.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I ask all the folks is, first of all, thank you for the answer. And the question I ask is, why do you run? Has it changed from the day you started running your first 100 miler to up until today?
Yeah, it did. It has changed a lot. And ironically, I feel that the best relationship I have with running is now in my entire career. And that is due to the fact that maybe I think at a certain point in my career, I was running because of an obligation. Like many of the races I was doing was because of an obligation, like either with a brand, like I had to be there and I wasn't motivated to be there. Maybe I wasn't in the best moment in my life. When I moved to Spain, I felt like I really suffered with the adaptation, and I didn't give myself the time. So I was racing while I was in that process of trying to, get used to a different culture, different language, different place, being far away from my family, from my friends. It was very hard for me, and I didn't give myself time. So I was racing for an obligation. And I got to a point where many of the times I put my shoes on and I went for a run or for a workout, it was like something that I didn't really feel like doing, but I did it because I had to do it. And it was like, oh, I have a race and I have to train and I need to do that. And I didn't feel like that. And now, I think also because of my injury, when I couldn't run last year, I was like, something was removed from my life, and it was something that really mattered to me. And I only realized it after it was removed from my life, right? When I couldn't run anymore, I felt like I lost something important. And I got to the point in my injury, like I was so deep in a hole that I thought that I was never going to run again. And I was in so much pain for so long that it got to a point where if I could just, I like, if you told me you're never gonna run again, I would have told you, fine, I buy that idea and I'm okay with that. But just please, I need to remove this pain from my life, because I was in so much pain and I was willing to not run anymore ever in my life. But I just wanted to have a day without pain. And it was that bad. And now that I'm recovered and I'm pain free. And like today, I put my shoes on and I went for a jog. And it's like there is no pain and there is no nothing, I'm feeling great. I'm happy. It's a feeling of opportunity, I say. Like I compare, I say obligation in the past, and nowadays is opportunity. So putting my shoes on, it gives me the opportunity to do again something that I thought that I would never do in my life anymore. And we tend to value things when we lose them. And
Yes.
that was something that happened to me. I think I see the value in running nowadays so much more than I did in the past, because in the past I took it for granted. I thought that everybody is like, you can run and you can run every day and it's fine. And when this is over and it's like you can't run anymore, not ever. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to give you this back, but take care of it. And then you really take care of it. And it's like, every time I run, for me it's a special day. It's a day that I feel happier, and I feel that I was given this opportunity back, and I want to save it and preserve it, because it's something that I want to do for a long time, even if it's not racing, but just, as part of my life and my routine.
And that is a very good perspective. And I think we tend to do that is when we have it, then we just don't care. Like in a lot of things in life too.
No.
Like when we have things, then we just don't care about it, and then once it is gone, only with like, oh God, I wish I had that. Like
Yeah.
especially when we were running. And I would like you to finish this sentence for me. Running has changed my life because
Running has changed my life because it has given me the opportunity to travel the world, which was one of my dreams, to see uh, places, to get to places that a normal person would never go. And it's something that makes me feel like the richest person in the planet, because it's something that it's a different kind of being rich, because it's something that money can't buy. It's only your fitness and your feet and your legs that will be able to take you in that place. So yeah, I feel privileged to be one of those people who are standing there in a start line of a 200-mile race and ready to do it, because I think this is like narrowing it down to very few people in the planet. So I feel very special.
final question before we hang up. What is next for you? Any more 200-mile races next year? Back to Triple Crown or no?
Yeah, so we'll see. I one of the races I really want to do, and it's probably going to be one of my races next year, is Tor de Géants. That's a race in Italy. I did go to that race last year, but it was just after my surgery. It was a very stupid decision, and I didn't finish the race. So it's something that I want to go back to. It's probably the hardest race that I have ever done. And then the rest is like I still have to decide. I know it's not only that. Some of the races that I have tried are like lottery races, so I need to wait and see if I get lucky with the result. Like for example, Hard Rock, I put my name on that, but I know that the odds are very low.
That is a tough race.
Yeah, we'll see. But one of the big possibilities is Tor de Gens in Italy.
And if you had one opportunity to pick one race that you can do tomorrow from all the races that you have in the world, which one would you pick?
Oh, wow, that's hard. If I could go back to a race, you say,
Any
or
race, you
do
can
any
pick any
race?
race to do tomorrow.
Yeah, I think one of the races that I would do tomorrow is Everest Trail Race, especially because it's starting tomorrow, I think. And I've been watching the pictures on Instagram, and it's very special because it's in Nepal. It's for me is like probably the favorite place on earth. I love Nepal, and just the energy of that place. It's very special. So I have done it 3 times, and I would go back. So yeah, I think that would be the race.
Yeah, when you mentioned that, I was gonna tell you I am from Nepal. I was born in Nepal. Yeah, so but then I moved to
Okay.
US and then I'm here in Berlin. So yeah, I was gonna say that like, oh yeah, I
Wow.
was born in Nepal. So yeah, it's
That's amazing. Yeah, I say like the people in Nepal, they are just so special. And the energy in Nepal is so special. Everything is so different. It's like you enter a portal and it's a world that is not in this world, is just a different dimension, and it's so nice. Yeah, I mean the people and the culture and everything. I fell in love with Nepal, and it's like my definitely my favorite. And I didn't know that you were from Nepal, so that's 100%. Yeah,
yeah,
you should go back to Nepal.
yeah. I have
Leave
to.
Berlin.
Yeah, I have race plans. So yeah, I know there are so many trail races there in Nepal, but yeah, it's a beautiful place to be, and I wanted to do the Everest base camp hike that I've never done it so far too. So that looks really good. So yeah, it's like you said, it's those trails, and there are so many trails like that to the Annapurna base camp too, and so many other like Makalu and things like that. So it's like one of the best place to do hiking or multi-day
So
backpacking
nice.
and things like that. So yes, yeah,
Yeah, so nice. Yeah.
yes, yeah, and yeah. Thank you so much for your time. It was awesome to talk to you and talk about your journey. And it seems like you don't back down from any challenges, and that's kind of inspired me. And like how you said that, be present. I think that is so important that I've learned from today is like from me too. Whenever I do things or think of things, and I'm always thinking about the past and not living in the present too. So yeah, I think yeah, that has been really good lessons. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to what you do next, and looking I'll be catching up on you. Yeah, and thank you so much, and have a
Thank,
good afternoon in Spain.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thank you for making it to the end of the podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. I'll see you again next time with another guest. Until then, happy running.